Hello. So I want to share this time with you about patterns and insecure relating. And what I mean with that is that so many of us do not feel safe in relating and do not feel safe in intimacy. And that can play out in certain patterns repeating themselves over and over again. So, looking at attachment dynamics, if you feel safe in intimacy, you have no trouble letting people close to you. And often, people who are safe in relating, they just start a relationship, and like 15 years later, they may still be in that relationship feeling safe. Many of us, if you're watching videos like this, if you are noticing that you have patterns in your relationships, there is a fair chance that you are insecure in relating. And there are many different theories on that. And the one that I like to stick with is that if you are insecure in relating, you might have one of two main strategies. One is having what I have is a more anxious anxious attachment style, which means that you have a fear of abandonment, is that you feel more safe when a person is closer to you. It also means that you easily feel insecure when someone is not available. It means that you might get nervous if they don't respond to a message. It may mean that you have strong distortion stories. That means that if they don't respond, you might think that they have found like 5 others, made 10 babies with I don't know how many different women, and will never come back to you again, they'll never love you again, and so on and so forth. And the more time you give these thoughts, the bigger the stories will get. So that's like the more anxious styles. It's the person who comes closer and is looking for confirmation a lot of the time. Complementary to that style is the more avoidant attachment style, which are the people that are said to have a fear of commitment. So when they are feeling the insecurity in their relating style, they will take a step backwards. They might be the ones that give very much mixed messages. So one moment they are super close to you, they tell you how beautiful they are. And then the next moment they might not want to have sex with you. Or they say something not very nice about your clothes. They might, they keep the distance in certain ways. So some theories say you are one or the other. My experience is that I can have both, but that I have my preferred strategies. So I'm more on the anxious side, but if someone is looking for a lot of confirmation from me, I'll go into distance, I'll go into avoidant mode. So this is just a very short, brief intro into attachment dynamics. There is so much good stuff to find on this, and I talk more about this in other videos as well. So this is a short intro to what I want to share with you today, which is I know I have my patterns in relating. If I look back at the people I related with, definitely the ones that were more like primary partners, but definitely also lovers, is that I tend to pick a specific certain sort of person. And although they might look completely different all the time, most of them have like the exact same character traits. They have the exact same responses to my repeated behavior. So the behavior I show at one of them, I will show again, because these attachment dynamics, they are so wired into our system. We might become more safe. Like I became way more safe in letting people close and in relating than I used to be. But it's so ingrained in our programming and our wiring that I wonder if it will ever leave. I actually don't really think so. We're just getting better to deal with it. So there will be moments when my nervous system is challenged or triggered that I will disclose or show the similar behavior, the fearful behavior. And it is so interesting to see that the characters change, but the play does not change. The same thing happens over and over again. And last week I got that played out in front of my face so clearly. I was in a beautiful retreat with the beautiful Shani Love, the erotic mysteries deep dive in Berlin or next to Berlin, and we had a beautiful group of people. And there was a man, there was a person, and I've got full permission to share this with you from this person. There was a man that I didn't even really see the first days. Like I didn't really notice him. But then I think around the second day, he started inviting me. He started flirting with me. He started opening opening doors towards me. And suddenly I was like, huh, this is interesting. Oh, you are here. Oh, I actually didn't see you before. And oh, you're cute. And I started opening up because there was something he was giving me that feeds me. He was giving me affirmations that I'm likable, that I'm lovable, that I'm interesting. And to me, having this more anxious, wired system, this is like sugar. This is like sugar. It gives me a big rush. And then I'll get a bit of low again and I want more. So he was like kind of feeding me sugar. And I was, he's also just a very interesting person, a lovely person, cute person. So I started opening up to him. And I could see, and from the beginning I was sharing with my friend and Rumi, I was sharing with her like, this person is like totally my pattern. Like he's totally the pattern of men that I pick. He's one of them. And I'm allowing myself to consciously step into this interaction and see what happens. So I was sharing that with her. And I could also feel how I had a gift for him. That my pattern of men is to pick men who are beautiful persons, who are definitely self-conscious, on a spiritual path of growth, who are into tantra and conscious sexuality and all that, and who are also not the most grounded person. So one of my past lovers, I would explain him as kind of like a butterfly, and this is not bad judgment, it's just I'm very earthy, I'm very much there, and this person is more like there, which is, other elements, water and air, whereas I'm fire and earth, and that is different. So this person was exactly like that again. And I could see how I was feeding him sugar as well, in the form of presence, in the form of sexual embodiment, of being very present in my body, of being very present in my sexuality, of being able to communicate and reflect on a high level so that he could do the same thing. So we were having a good time. We were enjoying each other's company. That was very beautiful in this 7-day relationship for about, half a day. And then I started noticing that I was losing my center. The codependency kicked in within that half a day because I started to become dependent on his showing me that he liked me. And he became dependent on my presence. And of course, we were in a setting with a lot of people, with a lot of intimate interactions with lots of people. So, which is to me an area in which I have lots of insecurities because, I think I shared in another video, I have been pushing my own boundaries for the past 5 years. And I decided a year ago with myself, like, I'm going to be more gentle with myself. And because I pushed myself for so many years, my nervous system just fires really quickly. So I feel insecure with someone that I let close in an intimate setting, which is also something I judge myself for because I work in this field. So here we go, full exposure. But I could notice that happening. I started to lose my center and get triggered in my fear. Like, what if he suddenly shifts his focus and his sugar towards another woman, and I might lose it. What then? So I started feeling that, and I lost my center a little bit. I started leaning a little bit, and for him it may have been a bit uncomfortable, but not very much dangerous. It became dangerous at the point where I noticed that this happened. So this was like about day 1.5 when I noticed this, and I decided, you know what, I don't want to do this. I actually consciously step into this, but now I'm going to bring my power back. I'm going to come back into my own center and see if I can find that. Like, finding my center was my theme for the week. So I took a bit more distance. I started finding sisters, I was swimming in an ice cold lake. I was doing all these things to really find my center back. And I did. I really found my center back. And that's why he got triggered, because I was taking my sugar away. And then suddenly what I saw in front of me was a person who felt super insecure. I could see the eyes change, the facial expression towards me change. There was no capacity to come to me and to affirm me and to even just come to me for a talk or to come to me for a hug or for a kiss or whatever. There was no ability there in that moment when I took my power back, and I was not pushing him away. I was not I was not, reactive. I was just coming back to myself and not actively approaching him to get more sugar. I was finding my inner safety and my inner self-care instead of reaching out for that. So suddenly I saw a whole different person. I saw a whole different side of him, not a whole different person, but a whole different part of this person. And probably he saw a whole different part of me as well. And I can imagine from his standpoint, I became very distant and very unsafe because I took the presence away. And the embodiment and stuff was not that available anymore for him. So we had like 2 days where we kind of like, saw each other, said hello, but no interaction other than that. And I told my friend, I shared with her, like, hey, I'm going to find my center back, and I'm only going to actively approach him for closeness and cuddles and kisses and stuff when I have my center back. So that took a few more days to really come back to that. And then from that point, I could connect with him again, and we could connect as two human beings. And what for me and my parents was actually really beautiful when on the last full day of this workshop, we did an exercise where we were giving each other a session, or we could ask for a session in intimacy work, where when it was my turn to receive, I actually made him do all the things that would usually take me out of my center. So I asked him to honestly tell me the things that he liked about me, like positive things. Like, I am such a sucker for that. Like, I love hearing that. It takes me out of my center so easily when it's someone that my nervous system responds to. Not with every man, but especially with men who have this complementary challenges as I have. So I asked him to do that. I asked him to touch me. I asked him to give me pleasure. And the only thing I did for an hour was focusing on my center, focusing on my center, focusing on my center, and still receive it. And that was quite a deal breaker. Like, afterwards, I had to jump in the ice cold lake again to really ground myself. But that was such a beautiful imprint for my own nervous system. It's like, hey, I can actually find myself again when my nervous system is triggered by someone, and I feel like some people might call it in love. I don't feel like I was in love, but it's a similar wobbliness of the nervous system. So I had that wobbliness, and I could still find my center back, resource myself. So the pitfall is that the moment that I was feeling insecure and I felt like I was triggered and drawing back, I could have gone back to him from that place and asked him for confirmation. And that's what happens a lot in these relationships while we have these dynamics, is that we go to that person we relate with to find confirmation. And if I would have done that, I would have gotten the sugar again from him, and he would have gotten the sugar again from me, because I would be there present again, even though I would not resource myself and lean on him and make myself a bit smaller than I actually am. And he would make himself smaller a bit too. And so it would stick in the dynamic. We would let the dynamic go on and on and on. Whereas now we kind of stepped out of it and started relating again from a different space, from centeredness. And I think because I consciously chose to be in my center, I gave him the opportunity to do the same thing. And so that's what we did. And really, if you want to come out of a situation like that, it takes two people who have the full commitment and the full capacity to really go and look within, and to really be vulnerable, and to really say hey, this is actually what I need. My underlying need is to feel safe in a relationship, which is a very, very valid need. But the sugar of going out for confirmation and only getting it there from a hidden space, from a secret agenda, instead of saying hey, I feel a bit insecure, can we have a moment, can we talk, which is open agenda. It needs to really get there, and it needs two people to really get through that. And I've experienced that before. Previous times it took me months to get here. Now only 7 days, 6 days. Then you can get somewhere. Then you can actually come and relate. For this one, this was a full 6-day relationship, and it felt like this was about the process. And by the time that we had this session, and after that we could, let each other close again, and I felt complete. And I feel completely complete with this interaction I had with this person. and waved goodbye and feel very satisfied. And there is no part of me that is still trying to reach out and receive sugar, because I'm seeing that is what's happening. And I've seen that with lots of my parents, and I guess the same will be the same for lots of people, is that when you start seeing your pattern and you can honestly tell yourself, or even Facebook, that this is what's happening, the power of the pattern is going down. So the power doesn't have its grip on you. You start to see it, and you can actually consciously decide to do things in a different way. For example, by resourcing yourself, by finding out and then expressing what your underlying need is, and also to find the most healthy places to resource, to calm down, to relax your nervous system, because we need that. With a triggered nervous system, you cannot make healthy adult decisions. You really need to relax your nervous system. In other words, get through your triggers, let the triggers have their wave, their peak, and then come down and settle again before you actually can make conscious decisions. So often it's not the partner, not the person we're relating with that's the best person to turn to. My suggestion is usually to find like a sister group or a men's group or friends that can resource you and support you in your process. So let me know if this is anywhere recognizable for you, if you have a similar wiring as I have, if you have a more anxious attachment pattern. I'm curious if you have similar relationship experiences, and maybe, as I've basically talked about both sides, maybe you recognize yourself in the other part. And of course, this is about me and the sugar that my system craves for, and maybe you have different ones. So I'm very curious to hear from you. Thank you for sharing this bit of time with me. Sending you lots of love and looking forward to checking in next time. Mwah.